Hey everybody! We're looking now at how digestion actually works as a process. So, what we do when we talk about digestion is we break it down into two main categories because the digestive system breaks down food using these two different methods. So the first method is called physical digestion. And then the other method that we'll talk about is called chemical digestion. And thinking back to the chemistry topic, what physical digestion is doing is it's just a physical change. It's causing physical changes to the food because it's breaking it down into small particles, but it's not changing the molecules. It's just breaking apart all the food to make it easier for the chemical digestion to happen. All right. And these are the ways that the digestive system does physical digestion. It happens in a few different places. The very first one that happens is right at the start because this one happens in our mouth using our teeth. And it's just chewing. Because if you think about it, when we chew our food, we're breaking it down into smaller and smaller pieces so that we can swallow it easily and it goes through our digestive system easily as well. All right. And then once the food passes down our esophagus, as it passes through our esophagus and in the stomach, it gets compacted by these two organs because the esophagus and the stomach actually have muscles lining them and they can compress our food and they can start to pull it apart as well. And this process here is called peristalsis. Peristalsis. So again, it breaks the food down by pushing on it and compressing it. And that also helps to break apart the food for digestion. Okay, the other physical change, the other physical way it's digested is also in the stomach. And this is caused by a chemical called bile. It's a lovely looking chemical. Here's a jar of it. It's this browny yellow liquid. And it's released into the stomach. And it comes from the gallbladder. So that's one of the reasons the gallbladder is important. Remember, the gallbladder is this small green organ down here. And actually, firstly, bile is produced in the liver as well. So it's made by the liver, it gets stored in the gallbladder, and then it gets released into the stomach. And then this chemical is really good at dissolving any fatty foods and fatty molecules that are in our food. So it dissolves fats and oils, which is really useful because when you're dissolving something, it's breaking it into smaller and smaller pieces. So small that you can barely see them individually. So that's going to make it really easy to break down those chemicals when we get to chemical digestion. And the actual scientific name for what bile does is emulsifying. So you can say that bile is an emulsifier. Just like the chemicals that you add to salad dressings to mix together the water and the oil. So if you've ever used an emulsifier, here's a salad dressing before you add it, and then once you add an emulsifier and shake it up, it all mixes together and dissolves the oil into one liquid. So that's what bile's doing in our stomach, dissolving all the fats and oils. All right. And then, like I said, physical digestion is happening, but chemical digestion is also happening. And this is how we break down our food into really small molecules, because it's breaking down the large food molecules into smaller versions of them. And so this is a chemical change, just like we learnt about last topic. The molecules are changing and we're making new chemicals as part of this process. So here you can see these are a whole lot of representations of some food molecules before they've been digested. So we'll just call them large food molecules. And what happens in chemical digestion is they get broken down. So this is happening in the stomach, and it's also happening in the small intestine as well. And that's because there are some other chemicals that are called digestive enzymes. So they're chemicals as well, and they get released into the stomach and released into the small intestine. So you can imagine them, they're just molecules, but they come along to our food molecules and they break them all apart. So they're going to come along, they'll break apart this rainbow one, they'll break apart this green one, and they'll break apart this triangular one into nice and small molecules, and then these are ready to be absorbed into our body after that. So they're the two main ways that our body digests the food and breaks it down. But digestion is only the first step. Absorption is the next one. So we'll call this next stage nutrient absorption. So what happens when we absorb our nutrients is this is all happening in the small intestine. It's the most important, well, one of the most important organs in the digestive system. It's really, really long, firstly, because that's going to help us absorb as much food as we can. You can see if we try to trace the path of this small intestine, it is really long. It's a long tube and it's all wrapped up together in this big, or wrapped up together in a small space. Okay, so it's really long firstly. And then on the inside of the small intestine, it's got all these small ridges. And the ridges expand the surface area. They give the intestine lots of area to absorb as many nutrients as possible into our body. Because you can imagine the nutrients are on the inside of the intestine, and we need them to go through and into our body, into the bloodstream. So ridges increase the area for absorption. And then if you zoom into those ridges, which we've done here, you can see here's the ridges. Well, actually, there are tiny ridges on the ridges, because you can see that they're made up of lots and lots of ridges if we zoom in. And those ridges there are called villi. And just like the ridges, the villi increase the area to absorb as many nutrients as possible into the body. Okay, so that's the two main processes the three main processes in digestion. The food gets digested physically, then it gets digested chemically, and then the nutrients get absorbed into our body. And that's how the digestive system works.